Good day again, everybody. It's the 12th of July, 2023. And of course, it's the second day of the Nato summit. And you saw a pretty angry Zelensky yesterday. So there's a photograph going around about him, with him. He got a real sour look on his face. And a lot of people are saying it looks like nobody wants to talk to him. He was Mr. Popular not long ago. He was Elvis. But he was Elvis in politics, but maybe not anymore. Maybe everybody's getting a little bit sick of him begging for money and weapons, and nobody ever knows where that money really all goes, and the weapons all get destroyed. And I think, it's like one of those easy come, easy go. You get this stuff very easy, and so you're not careful with it. It's all getting blown up, risking it all. It's just like lives, getting these lives of these poor Ukrainian men, these young guys, taking them off the streets. You never can get enough of these guys. And the mine sweepers are too expensive, so they just send the bodies out there. They point a gun at them, say, point your gun that way, go that direction, and if you turn around, you're going to catch a bullet from us. Terrible stuff. And of course, they're gathering most of these people from Odessa or any kind of a pro-Russian area. That's where the main cannon fodder comes from. A lot of people are saying they're using the mercenaries as cannon fodder, but maybe in a different way. They're maybe using the mercenaries and sending them maybe to the dangerous places as well, but the dangerous combat places, and not just using their bodies as something to detonate mines, like they're using their own people. A lot of people are kind of catching on to that. Makes you really wonder when the Ukrainians, when the masses are going to be catching on to this. And like Lukashenko said, and I've reiterated on this, that he said that Zelensky's legacy is not going to be a very good one. I could talk more about that, about some other people's legacy, like when some guy in Germany can I go through that way? I don't think so. Some guy in Germany in the 30s and the 40s, kind of very similar. But anyhow, somebody asked me like different sources, like what sources I like, to get a lot of news. And of course, you get some on Telegram, and you get it from Sputnik and RT. A lot of you maybe can't get that, like say in Germany or something. A lot of that stuff is blocked in a lot of countries. But then there's a lot of people that actually get the news from those places, and then they rebroadcast it in their own way. And then there's, like I said, Telegram channels and things like that, some different sites. That's what I get. But there was a few other names, the popular people that I like to listen to, and I didn't mention to that person on the site. I mentioned, of course, a lot of them, and everybody's knowing, like Colonel McGregor and Scott Ritter and the Duran and things like that. But I didn't mention to that person. There's also Annie Akay. She reports on a lot of the Polish things, what's going on in Poland. She had gotten some kind of information about the size of the military, and apparently that was not quite accurate. It's probably she got it from a Polish source, and they just kind of underestimated it. Maybe the sources that I've been hearing from are overestimating it, because a lot of times, a lot of things will be going from one source. Just because it's reported by different people doesn't mean they didn't get it from one source. I remember that when I was farming in the Caribbean, a lot of people were putting out some bad information on macadamia nuts, because I was growing macadamia nut trees. And you see that, like, when the reporters report it, they're not farmers, and they're just getting it from someplace else. And of course, the information wasn't accurate. So I was thinking that it's very widespread misinformation. And I guess to get it, the good information, you have to get from people that are actually involved in got their feet in the water. It's like if you go to a pool and you see some lawyer sitting on the side in a suit and somebody swimming around in there, who are you going to ask how the water is? How's the water? Some smart lawyer? Or what are you going to ask a smart politician that is supposed to know a lot more than the rest of us do? And you get the impression that most of these politicians, I don't know if they're lying or are they just as dumb as a box of bricks or something like that. And a lot of us on these vlogs calling everything, to a huge percentage, we're calling it all accurately, and these politicians are getting it all wrong. And it's like, I don't know, a lot of them insulated. As we all saw, Donald Trump even got quite a few things wrong. And I didn't like, just like Tucker Carlson, I didn't like the fact that he had, well, not in a sense, he openly assassinated that Iranian general. And there was no court, no trial, nothing. And it turned out he was trying to make peace with Saudi Arabia. And that's why Trump got bad information from CIA and who knows who else to kill that guy, because at all costs they don't want peace. They want to sell those weapons. Boy, what a dirty and nasty world we have here. Just like what's going on in Ukraine. You have a lot of people making a lot of money, and I guess that's worth a lot more to them than anything else. Send those bodies out. I don't know. I can't see how people can live with themselves. But anyway, that's not what I was going to be talking about today. I was going to first talk about there's right along that line of disrespect for life. I was going to mention that many months ago I talked about some Kenya religious figure. He was getting people to starve themselves to death. And then they bury the bodies. They had many acres. I don't know, it was huge. Maybe it was 70 acres. It was a huge area. And you don't hear a lot about this in the West because these are only black-skinned people and they don't matter so much as Israelis or maybe Germans or British. Of course, the number one way up there is the Americans, and then it's the Israelis and the British, and a couple of notches down maybe the Germans. I don't know. You know how they look at things in the West. But anyway, they found more bodies. I guess this time it was 12, and that brings the count so far to these bodies as 351, and there are still 613 people missing. 613 unaccounted for. Really, really crazy stuff. And there's a lot of these sects, unfortunately, going on in Kenya. Why? I don't know. Some places are susceptible to that sort of thing. Okay, now, so let's talk about our favorite guy that I talked about yesterday, Erdogan. So I saw this quote, but of course it's translated, and it was something that Erdogan said, and it was like, he said, it's very strange, he said that he's not going to approve of Sweden going into Nato until he gets into the EU. And then I guess Jens Stoltenberg and whoever the other big uppity whatever, said, oh no, that's not true, that's inaccurate. So it's not over till the fat lady sings. So it makes you wonder who's going to prevail on this one. And they had that photograph of all these leaders standing next to each other. Everybody's looking and smiling, and Erdogan's looking at the ground. I really don't know. I wonder what kind of pressure he was under. Any kind of pressure. And Alex Christoforo did a very good report on mentioning all of the goodies that they're going to give to Erdogan for doing this sort of thing. And I don't know, apparently he did not confer with Vladimir Putin beforehand. So, and I think a lot of that stuff doesn't really matter so much. Sweden getting into NATO, I think it's a lot more dangerous when Finland went into NATO, because they share a border with Russia and Sweden doesn't share a border. I don't think Sweden even has any Arctic territory. I mean, beyond their own soils. I don't think they have anything like underwater on the shelf or whatever, like maybe Norway has. I really don't know, because there's a lot of things going to be happening in the Arctic at some point in time. The USA doesn't want Russia, to be as heavily involved there as they are getting. So lots of places, Anyway, I could sit here and just flap my jaws all day long about when things come to mind and what's going on in the world. If you're following all these events over this long period of time, really some interesting things. So, some big building here. Let's see if I can show that to you. Don't jump! Don't jump! Look, he's going to jump! I used to do that in Seattle when I was a kid. I had my friend, and we would be looking up at some tall building. Is he going to jump? And you get everybody to stop, and they're looking up there. Where is he? Where is he? Anyway, you know how kids are. So it's kind of also, it's also a chance. Anything is possible. That NATO just wanted this feel good feeling going into the summit, because of the failure of the Ukrainian offensives and all that. So they don't really care if Turkey, does this or that or the other thing. Maybe it's just for the the attitude of the summit. I don't know. Anything is possible. And then again, whenever they make these deals in NATO, it's not that they're all necessarily going to come about either. And before I forget, I don't know, did I write it in my notes that France is going to be sending long-range missiles now? Good old Macron, buddying up, wanted to get into BRICS. Makes you wonder, was that going to be was that going to be one of his bargaining things? Well, you let me go to this summit. You don't know what happens behind the scenes with these politicians, and I promise you, a lot of this stuff happens. I know that firsthand. And like I said, I've met with some of these. I didn't meet Ronald Reagan. I sat next to Ronald Reagan, eating a dinner, and I met some people. Some, didn't really talk to them. Like I said, at that time I was just a corporal, and but a lot of high politicians and generals and things like that, and really big movers and shakers, and in the U.S. government mostly. But anyway, that's how they do that. They do some of this wheeling and dealing, and I'll give you what you want if you give me what I want, and so forth. So it makes you really wonder if Macron was going to use that as some kind of a bargaining chip, maybe, to be allowed to go to the BRICS and sit in there and be a Trojan horse of some sorts, or who knows. He thinks he's maybe so charming, and that he's going to charm them, and he's going to be sort of a saboteur. I don't know. So that's just a theory of mine. So France has beat the USA to the punch. Instead of the ATACMS, he's sending whatever his long-range thing is. Who's got the biggest long-range thing here? And of course, Russia vows countermeasures, just like the cluster munitions. And I wrote it in the notes maybe further on, but right now that I'm talking about it, Russia has actually more cluster munitions, even though they don't use them because they're controversial and they're kind of nasty, and I don't think they would ever plan to use them on any other kind of friendly nations like that anyway. I mean, troops. Russia, I don't think, would bomb any civilians anyway. They would go out of their way not to do that. It's not like the United States, and they call it collateral damage. There's one bad person in some area, so just bomb the whole apartment building and kill everybody. Like they told us in the military, kill them all and let God sort them out. That's what we were taught. So that's how that works in the United States. Russia doesn't have that kind of philosophy. So anyway, that's just information, and a lot of you already know that. So anyway, Russia has all these cluster munitions as well, and they just don't use them. I think a lot of them are old. They're all probably Soviet era, and so there's a lot of them that are probably somewhat unstable. They won't be going off maybe when they're supposed to go off, as is the normal case with these cluster munitions. That's the bad part. And then they're sitting around there, and somebody touches something, trips over something or whatever, and then children and all that kind of stuff. And I'll tell you, You know, I don't think that Russia is going to be using them anywhere close to any kind of territories that they might want to actually liberate, of like Donbass and all that. So it's probably going to be in Stefan Bandera's homeland area, Lviv, however you want to call it. So that's where that ideology is really, really big. So I don't know. I still don't think that they would want to, you know, put any civilians in danger. But it looks like that's the escalation, and that's what things are going to. As you see, the United States, NATO, all these Western countries, looks like the name of the game is the escalation, is to keep things going, the escalation escalator, no brakes, no turn signal, just keep going. Well, maybe they have a turn signal. Well, they can make a little bit of left and a little bit of right, and gosh, it's kind of sickening. I mean, not kind of, it certainly is sickening. It certainly is, and a lot of you know that too. You know, it's like all this excitement watching this stuff going on, and most of us, it's not like we're rooting for Russia necessarily, but unfortunately, the United States does not represent humanity in this case. They represent profits and agendas and power, and Russia is in truth defending themselves, and they're trying to liberate Ukraine from these people of this ideology and their backers. And it looks like these people, they will really go till the last Ukrainian, because as long as it's not them, they really don't care. And I'm hoping that somehow in Ukraine, somebody wakes up, somebody gets some kind of a power some way, and throws this off. And apparently these neo-nasties there are a real dumb bunch of people. Really stupid. They're not only evil, they're really stupid. You know, can you imagine exhausting all of your ammunition, which means human lives, exhausting it all to support your ideology instead of any kind of real goals? You know, they just want power. And it was back in the old days of Adolf, and what they say the real thing was, it wasn't a lot of this BS that you hear in, you know, history class and all that, because they've analyzed what Adolphus was saying, and the number one thing they said what he was doing is he was looking for Lebensraum for what he called the master race. So that's what that was all about, you know, expanding like that. And as you know, like I was here in some place in Belarus, and I went to that memorial site where that one village used to be, and villages, over 200 in Belarus, were wiped out completely, all the people massacred. And a lot of these were done by our friends with the light-colored blue and yellow flag. A lot of that, the worst of all that, was done by these Banderites, the worst of the atrocities. And even the Germans were just appalled about how bloodthirsty and cruel and vicious these people could be. So that wasn't even part of what I was going to be talking about, but I get off on these tangents, and so I was going to make a little bit shorter video, but it looks like that's not going to happen. So let's go. Let me go back to where my notes are at here. But anyway, the U.S. says they're running out of weapons, and that's why they're sending the cluster bombs. Bull. Total bull. The U.S. has so many weapons. They have, you know, Russia's been building up weapons now, and they're going full speed in multiple factories. And like I said this a long time ago, long before it was even put out in the news, because I know people in these areas where they do a lot of the weapons manufacture, and they're working 24 hours, full shift. They can't even hardly get enough people, and they're making bombs like you would never believe. And that's when the West was saying, Russia's running out of bombs, you know. But anyway, the United States and a lot of these other countries, they have also vamped things up. Maybe not to the extent that Russia has, but they certainly have been. And they're, of course, probably doubling their amount right now. And how can you not think that they're doing that? when Poland wanted all these HIMARS, as far as the news was concerned, 500 HIMARS, which doesn't sound right anyway. It sounds like a little bit too high, but anyways, they want to build, and they want to be the big industrial, or not even industrial. They want to be the big economy, and they want to be the big military in Europe. You know, right now they're the biggest recipient of aid, and the biggest giver of aid is Germany. But of course, everybody knows Germany is falling right now, since they looked like they kind of were perfectly fine with losing their source of energy, which means they're going to lose their source of income. I don't know. To me, it's all very logical that when you're going to lose your source of cheap energy, your economy is not going to be the same anymore. And I would think everybody would know that, but I don't know. Apparently, people weren't able to put 2 and 2 together. There's so many people saying, "Gee, wow, Germany's going to go green. We're going to just pay 4 times the amount for our energy, and we're still going to be rich." Yeah, good luck on that one. Good luck on that one. So, okay. And Shoigu, let's go. Let's get going here. So I just said that the U.S. has a lot more weapons than they're telling they do. Biden, who knows what poppycock. It's just that they want to hold a lot of these weapons just in case there's some kind of a war with somebody else at some point in time or whatever, you know. So why are they sending weapons and all this to all over the place when they run out of weapons? That doesn't make sense. Okay. So Shoigu announced yesterday that since June 4th, Ukraine has now lost, this sounds very high, 26,000 soldiers since June 4th. So what is this? This is like 6 weeks. 26,000 soldiers since this counteroffensive started. Man, oh man, oh man, oh man, oh. And in the last days, it's been announced, whether this is true or not, and I don't see why not, at least somewhat true to a certain extent, that Russia has now released from training another 150,000 soldiers to join the special military operation. And along with that, Russia just yesterday added more kilometers. They took over more territory from Ukraine, even though territory is not necessarily the big deal, but it is to Ukraine. And of course, somehow, in some way, if you don't have the territory, you know, it is important. So it's not all important. Winning the war is when you're decimating all their entire military to the point where they're really depleted. You know, that is of course a major thing as well. Some little tree here. I don't know what that is. Don't think it's a linden tree. But yeah, 5 square kilometers or more, and then there's additional things as well. But Russia is mostly playing it defensively, and apparently Zaluzhny's come out and said he's completely against this counteroffensive, and that Ukraine should be also on the defensive and not on the offensive. And he's absolutely right on that. If he's that really is Zaluzhny and and all that, you never know. Might be deep fake information. Another announcement from Shoigu that, like I said, I said that already. That's what I told you. I said I had it in my notes further on. That if the West uses cluster munitions, that Russia will, and they have plenty of them, and they have better ones than the West does. But is it strange, you know, that after all this bragging, that seems like Russia has a lot better weapons than the United States does. Doesn't have the bells and the whistles, but it's actually a lot more effective. The tanks sometimes can be hit twice and are still operable. And these Leopards, they get hit once and they're gone, apparently. And also, don't forget, Russia has depleted uranium. And Britain, as you know, sent a lot of depleted uranium, and so Russia can actually do that if they want to too. And I'll add a note besides right now, and I think I've mentioned it before. I had a friend in the British military. He might even be watching this, I don't know. He's in a different part of the world right now, maybe no internet, things like that, in a very secluded place. But anyway, he was in the British military, and one of his jobs was, or task was, the inventory of nuclear weapons on his base. And when it was announced and put in the newspapers that Britain had withdrawn all of their nuclear weapons from Germany, they didn't withdraw them. They still had a lot, because he was the one that inventoried on that post, and they still had a lot of nuclear weapons on that post. And that kind of disgusted him very much. And he paid his savings to get out of the British military because of this deceit. So, very nice guy. He loves animals, cats and things like that. I was having a problem in St. Vincent, you know, and somebody, a politician, you know, was pissed off at me. He didn't quite win his seat, and I said I didn't vote for him. And, you know, some kind of little bit of argument. What did he say? You're probably a wanted criminal. And I said, you're probably a homosexual. And he got really, really ticked, you know. But, you know, it's kind of weird. It's supposed to, it's like against the law, and it's not good to be a wanted criminal. That's what he suspected me. That's why I left the U.S. But it's accepted everywhere, and everybody loves the homosexual. So he said a worse insult to me than I said to him. Anyway, he raised his hand. He was going to hit me. And then another guy who was his friend, who was living nearby, went into his house. And as I walked, I was right by his house. The guy goes and gets a gun and starts shooting it up in the air. So anyway, that's just part. You know, I had a lot of fun stories. But some days after that, you know, my cats were dead. So, and I told my friend, that guy that was in the British military, he was over at that time. Where was he? Anyway, he was working for UNICEF at that time, and he was delivering aid to Africa, and his countries were Burundi and Nigeria. Yeah, and he said he was in with a lot of, I mean, he knew a lot of these scrupulous guys in Nigeria, and he was to the point, because he didn't like hearing that these defenseless, my cats were slaughtered in a very bad way, by the way, and he was going to tell them, or ask them, pay their way to go and rough up these guys, the people that did this. But anyway, that's just kind of wishful thinking is all that is. So what else do I have here? So, okay, well, anyway, maybe I can, it's probably not going to be that short, but I can end this video soon. And what was I saying? Let's see, but yeah, I was going to say, it's not funny, but don't be alarmed. Don't be alarmed about if Russia starts to use depleted uranium and cluster munitions and starts, you know, increasing the death toll for the Ukrainian soldiers, you know, because it seems like they don't really mind, the United States or Ukraine, how many lives are lost. And it's not the U.S. getting destroyed, so don't worry about it. It's not Germany, it's not Great Britain, it's just Ukraine, you know? And it's a price they're willing to pay. It's a price they're willing to pay, is killing off the population of Ukraine, destroying their entire country, making it contaminated, you know, and dangerous with unexploded cluster munitions. Don't worry, it's just Ukraine. And it's like they know that Russia is going to move in at some point in time. This is going to be over, and Russia is going to be left to go back into Ukraine and clean it all up and make a second liberation of the Ukrainian people. The first liberation is to get rid of this ideology and this Western evil that is in there right now. Isn't it incredible how, you know, we're raised here in the West, everybody probably watching this, and we're taught that we're the good guys, and then you're seeing right in front of your eyes that we're not the good guys. We go around provoking conflicts to get the other guy to throw the first punch, and then we go in and start killing. I don't know. Sickening, but anyhow, that's how that's working, people. Yeah, and Zelensky, he's willing to be right along with that. I don't know. I don't see. He talks about his feelings for Ukraine. Well, look at what, I mean, why doesn't he stop this? So what's going to happen? What's going to happen if he stops it right now and says, okay, we give up? And of course, he doesn't call the shots. Somebody on the other side of the ocean that actually calls the shots. Everybody knows that. So many people talk about Ukraine saying we don't make a move unless it comes out of Washington. They're the ones that are directing everything that they do. Jeez, then they're going to go comb the streets to find more, and particularly pro-Russian Ukrainians, and then stick them out there and make them run through the minefields so that they can clear that way and try to make it at least to the first line of Russia's defense of 3 to 4 lines. Sickening stuff, huh? Looks like a truck's going to be coming by here. Looks like still dry in a lot of places, even though it's starting to green up here. Let me just see. Oh, I guess they didn't come this way. Huh. Yes, anyway, these lives, I guess to them, are a lot cheaper and a lot more expendable than this machinery. That comes and clears the mine. So I guess to them, that's the easy way. Don't even think about how these people look at human lives, And I used to think, that in Africa, what was it, in the 80s or something like that, when they had some of these bands going through, and slaughtering people in villages, and I was thinking, boy, these are really terrible people, and it's still that same propensity is, it doesn't matter what the color of your skin is, obviously. I mean, I was never thinking that, but I was thinking this culture that makes these people like that, and it's thinking, oh gosh, glad I'm living in a place or amongst people that are not like that, but that's not true. That's just not true. And there was something else I wanted to talk about, and I don't quite know how I was going to say this, but I can at least get part of this out. And it's about how we are all convinced as humans. It's psychology to think that, for example, I saw something on Jackson Hinkle, and he was showing this Russian soldier with his shirt off, sitting probably in a bunker somewhere, and he was talking about how crappy the tanks were, the Leopard tanks, and he's talking about how the Russians were, this guy, he looks like some guy who probably can barely read and write, which is not true. The Russians, and even the Belarusians, can fool you. I tell you what, you see some people here, and they look like they're just some sort of a guy that can only carry bags of cement, and nothing more than that. But some of these people, like they have these high degrees. I've seen that here, and it's just amazing. It's not like that in the States, or in Germany or anything like that. And then you see sometimes people that look like they're little professors or something like that, and they don't know anything. But anyhow, this guy, he's going off, and he's so accurate. Jackson Hinkle on his video said he really liked this guy, and he's talking about how even the Russians mostly, and of course it's the Belarusians even more so the Belarusians, they've been brainwashed by the West. And it's not just like Voice of America and things like that. It's probably television programming and the movies that come out and all that, and everybody is brainwashed to think that everything is better over there and everything is crappy over here, like in Belarus or Russia or whatnot. And then when you saw like during this World Cup and the football championships, and Great Britain, it was Theresa May at that time, and she was telling everybody not to go to Russia. And then of course they created, I think maybe that was when the Skripal thing, these two guys that supposedly they were just tourists or something. They were going to look at some cathedral. Probably a lot of the Russians are saying that they're probably two homosexual guys, and they went to Great Britain. you know, no speculation there. And then they were looking at some cathedral in some town. It just so happened to be the same town as the Skripals were living, and that they poisoned the Skripals. And of course, the whole story doesn't add up at all, because nobody's allowed to even talk to the Skripals to find out, to ask any questions, or what, or even what they think, you know, or if they were even poisoned at all in the first place, you know. And it's Novichok or something like that, and Russia hasn't had that for a long time. But the only country I think that really makes Novichok is Ukraine. Very strange there too. But anyhow, they were telling Theresa May was telling everyone, don't go to Britain, don't go, you know, blah, 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 you know. And then they created this thing with the Skripals and all that sort of thing, and still a lot of people went. I'm surprised they didn't ban them from going or whatever, but they went, and they said they were so surprised that Russia was nothing like what they were told and nothing like what they expected. And of course, it's going to be the same as Belarus. Like, things have drastically changed here since I was first here in the year 2000. I always say that. And you know, I can show you areas and you think that you're in a very well preserved part of Germany, and it's actually I mean in the city somewhere. Like, I can show you something like that in Minsk, and you think you're in a well preserved part of a city in Germany, but you're not. It's in Minsk. So, but anyhow, mostly it's how easily we get brainwashed, and a lot of time you just can't. It's just like Erdogan. That's how I was going to connect this. I was going to connect this with Erdogan. Erdogan, he believes that that he wants to get into the European Union. And I don't know if it's like an either-or situation. You either get in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization and BRICS or whatever. That's on one side, and then you got the other side, which would be like the G7 and the European Union, which apparently is controlled in a large part by, you know, the government of the United States. We've already been seeing that lately for some reason, you know. But you'll find the parallels. You're watching the news. I don't want to get into that right now, but anyway, he's probably somehow psychologically brainwashed that he wants to get into, because it was all those years, decades, he was trying to get into the European Union. So now he thinks he found a way to get into the European Union, to kind of double cross a little bit, sort of here. And then it's going to be, he's going to, you know how it works with a lot of people. He's going to, if that actually works that way, he's going to wake up. Well, he's getting old. I don't know how long he's going to be in his office, but he's going to, if he's, you know, if he's still there and all that, he's going to wake up and he's going to say, what the heck did I want that for? And he's going to be looking at all these other countries, you know, being prosperous. Not only prosperous, you know, they're going to be free and probably at peace, making peace. And he's going to be stuck with a bunch of declining idiots, a bunch of idiot politicians that don't know their backside from their elbow, as Jackson Hinkle would say. And I don't know, you guys all know that stuff just watching these politicians, so I won't even elaborate on all that. I don't even want to think about it. But anyway, that's probably it for the video. And subscribe if you haven't already. And I'm hoping to get somewhere else in Minsk, show you guys some sights. This is just kind of not too far from here. Looks like a new sidewalk kind of coming in right here. No, and I don't know what this is. Over here, this building. But anyway, that's it, and I thank you very, very much for joining me, and I will see you on the next one. So bye-bye.